You ever notice how the word luxury sounds expensive, but feeling luxury feels like swallowing glass? That discomfort you feel when you walk past a store window and catch yourself wanting something you didn't even know existed 5 seconds ago, that's not an accident. That's architecture. Someone built that feeling into you, brick by brick, year by year, until the weight of it became so familiar you started calling it normal. But here's the thing about normal. Normal is just another word for forgotten. And what you've forgotten is this. Luxury, as we know it today, is not even a century old. It's a construct, a manufactured religion, and you've been tithing to it your entire life. Let me take you back to a moment in history that nobody talks about anymore. It's 1929. The United States economy just drove itself off a cliff. Banks are failing. Factories are closing. Men in expensive suits are throwing themselves out of windows on Wall Street because the paper they built their lives on just caught fire. And in the smoking wreckage of that collapse, something new is being born. Not hope, not recovery, something darker. A question is being whispered in boardrooms and marketing offices across the country. How do we make people buy things they don't need with money they don't have in an economy that just died? The answer to that question would reshape human desire itself. Before the crash, luxury meant something specific. It meant rare. It meant inaccessible. It meant the kind of thing a king owned and you would never touch. A silk robe from China. A gemstone pulled from a mine in Africa. A painting that took a master 3 years to complete. Luxury was vertical. It existed above you. And the distance between you and it was the entire point. You weren't supposed to have it. That's what made it luxury. But after the crash, after the depression, after the war, something fundamental shifted. America had built the most powerful manufacturing engine in human history. Factories that could produce 1,000 of anything in the time it used to take to make one. And those factories needed to keep running. They needed you to keep buying. But how do you sell mass-produced goods, items that are identical, stamped out by machines, and make them feel special? How do you take something common and make it feel rare? You lie. Not a simple lie, an elegant one. A lie so sophisticated it would take decades to perfect. The luxury goods industry, as we know it today, was born in the ashes of scarcity and raised in the garden of abundance. Its entire purpose is to convince you that mass-produced items are somehow exclusive, that a handbag stitched together in a factory by workers making poverty wages is worth more than a car, that a watch assembled on a production line is an heirloom, that a logo, a symbol, a brand name is a passport to a better version of yourself. Let me introduce you to the architect of this con. His name is Edward Bernays. You've never heard of him, but you've spent your whole life living in the world he designed. Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he understood something most people didn't in the early 1900s. He understood that human beings don't make rational decisions. We make emotional ones. We don't buy things because we need them. We buy things because of how they make us feel, or, more accurately, because of how we've been conditioned to believe they'll make us feel. In 1929, Bernays was hired by tobacco companies to make smoking acceptable for women. At the time, it was considered unladylike, even scandalous. So what did he do? He didn't advertise cigarettes. He didn't talk about taste or quality. Instead, he hired a group of young women to march in the New York City Easter Parade while holding cigarettes. He told the press they were torches of freedom, symbols of liberation and independence. Within weeks, smoking became associated with women's rights. Sales exploded. He didn't sell a product. He sold an identity. This is the blueprint. This is the con. And it's the same con that built the modern luxury industry. By the 1950s, America was drowning in products. The post-war economic boom meant factories were cranking out goods faster than people could buy them. Refrigerators, televisions, cars, washing machines, everything you could ever need and 1,000 things you couldn't. The problem was saturation. Once everyone has a refrigerator, how do you sell another one? You can't. Not unless you convince them the one they have is inadequate, outdated, embarrassing. Enter planned obsolescence, a term that sounds technical but really just means designing failure into the product. Make it break. Make it go out of style. Make the customer feel ashamed for still using last year's model. This wasn't a secret. This was policy. In 1954, an industrial designer named Brooks Stevens gave a talk where he explicitly defined planned obsolescence as instilling in the buyer the desire to own something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than is necessary. Read that again. A little sooner than is necessary. They knew you didn't need it. They just needed you to want it. Now let's talk about the handbag, the holy grail of modern luxury. A leather bag that costs $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. You know the names, you've seen the logos, and if you're honest with yourself, you've wanted one. Maybe you still do. Maybe you own one. And maybe, if you're really honest, you felt that tiny flicker of disappointment when you realized that owning it didn't change anything. You're still you, just with a more expensive bag. Here's what they don't tell you about that bag. The leather probably costs $50. The labor, maybe another $30. The hardware, the zipper, the stitching, another $20. You're looking at a production cost of around $100 for an item that retails for $10,000. That's a 99% markup. And that's not unusual. That's standard. So where does the other $9,900 go? Marketing, advertising, the fashion show in Paris, the celebrity endorsement, the glossy magazine spread, the flagship store with the marble floors, and the staff in tailored suits who look at you like you're auditioning for permission to give them money. You're not paying for the bag. You're paying for the theater, the illusion, the story they've constructed around it. And the story goes like this. This bag is rare. This bag is special. This bag is a symbol of status, of taste, of having arrived at some invisible finish line where you're finally good enough, where people will finally see you the way you want to be seen. But here's the cruel joke. Luxury brands don't want you to arrive. They want you to chase. Because the moment you feel satisfied, the moment you feel like you have enough, you stop buying. And if you stop buying, the entire system collapses. This is why luxury brands engage in what they call brand elevation. It's a polite term for artificial scarcity. They produce fewer items than the demand requires. They create waiting lists. They destroy unsold inventory rather than discount it. In 2017, the brand Burberry admitted to burning $37 million worth of unsold merchandise, not donating it, not selling it at a reduced price, burning it, because if people could buy it cheaply, it would lose its aura of exclusivity. Let that sink in. They would rather burn clothing, literal fabric and thread, than let it become affordable, because affordability is the enemy of luxury. Now let's go deeper. Let's talk about what this does to your brain. Because this isn't just about money. This is about identity. This is about the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. Every luxury purchase is a referendum on your self-worth. You see the item, you want it, but you hesitate. It's expensive. It's impractical. You don't really need it. And then the voice starts. The voice that sounds like you but isn't really you. It says, "You work hard. You deserve this. You've earned it. This is an investment. This is quality. This will last forever. This will make you feel different, better, more." And so you buy it. And for a moment, maybe a day, maybe a week, you do feel different. You feel like the person you're supposed to be, the person in the advertisement. The person who has it all figured out, but then the feeling fades. It always fades, because the feeling was never in the object. The feeling was in the anticipation, the pursuit, the fantasy. And now you're standing in your apartment at 3 in the morning, looking at a closet full of things you don't wear, wondering why nothing ever feels like enough. This is the trap. This is the machine. And it runs on a very simple fuel: your insecurity. The luxury industry has spent billions of dollars studying human psychology. They know what makes you tick. They know that you're afraid of being ordinary. They know that you're terrified of invisibility, of being forgotten, of not mattering. And they've built an entire ecosystem designed to exploit that fear. They've turned consumption into a spiritual practice, a ritual, a way of proving to yourself and everyone around you that you exist, that you matter, that you're winning at this game we're all forced to play. But here's the thing about games. Somebody sets the rules. And the rules of this game were set by people who profit from your dissatisfaction. Let me tell you about the Diderot effect. It's named after an 18th century French philosopher named Denis Diderot, who wrote an essay called Regrets on Parting with My Old Dressing Gown. The story goes like this. Someone gave Diderot a beautiful new scarlet dressing gown. He loved it. But then he started noticing that his old furniture didn't match the elegance of the gown. So he replaced the furniture. Then the wallpaper looked shabby. So he replaced that too. Then the decorations, the rugs, the artwork. One gift spiraled into a complete lifestyle renovation. And at the end of it, he was surrounded by expensive things he didn't need, mourning the simplicity he'd lost. This is not a historical curiosity. This is your life. You buy one thing, and suddenly everything else you own looks insufficient. The new phone makes the old case look cheap. The new car makes the old garage look embarrassing. The new dress requires new shoes, which require a new bag, which requires new jewelry. It never ends, because it was designed never to end. And the sickest part? You think this is your choice. You think you're the one deciding, but every impulse, every desire, every "I deserve this" moment has been planted in you by someone who profits from your wanting. Now, let's talk about what luxury actually costs. Not in dollars, in time, in freedom, in years of your life. The average American works 40 hours a week. That's 2,080 hours a year. If you make $50,000 a year, that's about $24 an hour. So when you buy a bag that costs $5,000, you're not spending $5,000. You're spending 208 hours of your life. That's 5 full weeks. More than a month of waking up at 6 in the morning, commuting through traffic, sitting in meetings, answering emails, pretending to care about things you don't care about, all so you can own an object that will be out of style in 2 years. You traded your life for a bag, and the bag doesn't care. The bag doesn't know about the overtime you worked, the weekends you missed, the moments with your family you can never get back. The bag just sits in your closet, slowly depreciating, a monument to a transaction you can't undo. This is what they don't want you to calculate. The real price, the human cost. Because if you did the math, if you really sat down and thought about how many hours of your finite existence you're exchanging for objects designed to break, to go out of style, to leave you wanting more, you'd stop buying. And they can't let you stop. So they've built a cathedral around consumption. They've made shopping into an experience. The stores aren't stores anymore. They're destinations. The packaging isn't packaging. It's a ceremony. Unboxing videos, haul videos, influencers flaunting their collections like trophies. The entire culture is designed to keep you engaged, to keep you wanting, to keep you believing that the next purchase will be the one that finally completes you. But nothing completes you, because you're not incomplete. You're just being sold a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Let me tell you about the hedonic treadmill. It's a concept from psychology that explains why nothing ever makes you happy for long. When something good happens, when you get the thing you wanted, your brain experiences a spike of pleasure. Dopamine floods your system. You feel amazing. But then, inevitably, you adapt. The new normal becomes normal. The pleasure fades, and you're right back where you started, searching for the next hit. This is why lottery winners are often miserable a year after winning. This is why people who achieve their dream jobs still feel empty. This is why buying the thing you wanted never feels as good as you thought it would. Because happiness isn't in the having, it's in the wanting. And once you have it, the wanting stops until the next thing. The luxury industry knows this. They're banking on it, literally. The entire business model depends on your inability to ever feel satisfied. So, what's the escape? How do you get off the treadmill? First, you have to see the cage. You have to recognize that every impulse to buy, to upgrade, to keep up has been engineered. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're being targeted by the most sophisticated psychological manipulation machine ever built, and the first step to freedom is acknowledging that it exists. Second, you have to redefine luxury. Because luxury isn't a handbag. Luxury is time. Luxury is freedom. Luxury is waking up in the morning and not immediately reaching for your phone to check how much you owe. Luxury is saying no to things you don't need. Luxury is the space between your income and your expenses. Luxury is not being owned by your possessions. Third, you have to break the link between objects and identity. You are not what you own. You are not your car, your watch, your shoes. Those are just things. They don't define you. They don't make you more interesting, more valuable, more worthy of love. The people who care about those things aren't the people you need in your life. And fourth, you have to get comfortable with being invisible, because that's what they've trained you to fear most. Being ordinary, being overlooked, being just another face in the crowd. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Invisibility is freedom. When you stop performing, when you stop curating your life for an audience that doesn't exist, when you stop buying things to prove something to people you don't even like, you get your life back. You get to be a person instead of a product. There's a philosophy that's been around for thousands of years, long before marketing executives and brand consultants that understood all of this. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature. The Buddhists called it non-attachment. The minimalists call it essentialism. The labels don't matter. The core truth is the same. You don't need much to be happy. In fact, the less you need, the freer you become. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who literally had access to everything, wrote in his private journals, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This is a man who could have anything, and what he realized was that having everything meant nothing. The trap of luxury is that it promises you a shortcut. It says, buy this and you'll feel like you've made it. But you haven't made it. You've just moved the goalposts. Because there's always another level, another tier, another exclusive club that requires another purchase. And you can chase that horizon your entire life and never reach it, because it's designed to recede as you approach. The only way to win is to stop playing. So here's the real luxury. Building a life where you don't need to prove anything to anyone, where your worth isn't tied to your net worth, where you can walk past a store window and feel nothing because you're not shopping for an identity, where you can sit in a quiet room with nothing but your thoughts and feel content, where you measure success not by what you have, but by what you no longer want. That's the freedom they can't sell you, because it can't be bought. The manufacturing scam isn't just about handbags and watches. It's about manufacturing desire itself. It's about taking a human being, a complex, thinking, feeling person, and reducing them to a consumer, a data point, a target demographic. It's about convincing you that your life is a problem and their product is the solution. But your life isn't a problem. It's just a life. And the only person who can define what it means, what it's worth, what it needs, is you. So the next time you feel that pull, that ache, that voice telling you that you need something you didn't need 5 minutes ago, stop. Ask yourself, who benefits from me believing this? Who profits from my dissatisfaction? Who designed this desire? And then walk away. Because the only luxury worth having is the one they can't manufacture, the luxury of being free.